It was raining, the kind of rain that doesn't rush. It takes its time, soaking hems, flattening hair, making every step deliberate. My parents stood under the awning and watched me fold my coat over my bag like I'd forgotten how weather worked. They didn't argue. They didn't explain. They said the decision had already been made, and they didn't want a scene. I remember thinking how tidy their porch looked. No shoes out of place. The wind chimed still, obedient. The house didn't look like it had just erased a person. The boy stood beside me, his backpack held tight to his chest. He was 11, maybe 12. He'd slept on my couch for 3 weeks after I found him behind the grocery store, sorting cans into careful rows. He didn't ask questions when the door closed. He just adjusted the straps and waited. I said thank you because I didn't know what else to say to people who had decided I was no longer theirs. We walked until the rain thinned and the streetlights came on. I kept us moving because stopping felt like omitting something. My phone buzzed once. An automated message from the bank reminding me of a payment due. The timing was almost funny. That night we slept in a bus shelter, sitting upright so the security patrol wouldn't tell us to move along. I gave him my scarf. He didn't protest. He just tucked it under his chin and watched the cars pass, counting them quietly. In the morning, life shrank to tasks. Find coffee. Find a restroom. Find somewhere warm enough to think. I took a job washing dishes at a diner that didn't care where I slept as long as I showed up. He waited in the library, reading manuals about trains and bridges. We met in the evenings and compared notes like colleagues. People looked at us with the same expression they reserve for temporary problems. I learned to keep my voice even. I learned which questions to answer and which to let pass. I learned that dignity isn't loud, it's repetitive. Weeks passed. Then months. We found a room above a closed tailor shop. The radiator clanged like it was arguing with itself. I paid cash. The landlord never asked our last names. The boy Eli never talked about before. Not his parents, not how he ended up where I found him. He washed his own clothes in the sink and lined them up on hangers with engineer precision. Sometimes I woke to find him already dressed, staring out the window at nothing in particular. One evening, while I was fixing the loose hinge on the door, he said, very casually, "My dad is a billionaire." I laughed, because it was either that or panic. I waited for the punchline. He didn't smile. I said carefully, "That's something people usually explain." He nodded. He owns a logistics company. Ports. Shipping. My mom died, he sent me to a school. Then another. I ran away. The words came out evenly, like a list he'd memorized. I felt something tighten behind my ribs, not hope, not disbelief. Responsibility. "Do you know how to contact him?" I asked. He shrugged. "He knows how to find me." That night I didn't sleep. Wealth doesn't erase danger. It concentrates it. I thought about lawyers, about custody, about what happens when power remembers it exists. In the morning, I told him we were going to talk to someone official. He agreed without hesitation, as if he'd been waiting. The caseworker listened more than she spoke. She asked for names, dates, schools. Eli answered precisely. When she left the room to make calls, the silence pressed down hard enough to feel physical. The confirmation didn't arrive as fireworks. It arrived as forms. As a man in a gray suit who apologized for being late and asked Eli if he preferred water or juice. As a phone call where someone said, "Yes, we've been looking." Authority didn't sweep us up. It paused. It verified. It decided. The meeting happened 2 weeks later in a conference room that smelled faintly of lemon cleaner. His father was older than I expected. Tired in a way money doesn't fix. He didn't look at me much. When he did was with a kind of professional assessment, like a contractor checking load, bearing walls. Eli sat straight-backed, hands folded. When his father reached for him, Eli didn't move away, but he didn't lean in either. They spoke quietly. I watched the clock. I reminded myself that love doesn't come with receipts. The intervention was clear and unmistakable. Guardianship. Counselors. A transition plan. When the attorney said my name and thanked me for temporary care under adverse conditions, something settled. Not triumph. Recognition. I was offered money. Not as a reward, never framed that way, but as restitution. I declined most of it. I accepted enough to pay off the debts that had been nibbling at my ankles for months. Enough to secure an apartment with a lease and a door that locked properly. Ellen moved into a house with views of water and schedules posted on refrigerators. He called me on Sundays. Sometimes we talked about school, sometimes about nothing. Once, he asked if I was angry. No, I said. Just aware. My parents sent a message eventually, a cautious one. They'd heard things. They hoped I was well. I read it twice and didn't reply. Silence, I had learned, can be a boundary without being a weapon. Life didn't reset. It rebalanced. I kept my job for a while longer than necessary just to finish what I'd started. I cooked dinners that fed one person and felt full. I learned how to sit still again. On a clear afternoon months later, Ely visited. We walked by the river. He told me about a bridge he'd studied, how it carried weight by distributing stress instead of resisting it outright. That sounds right, I said. He nodded, satisfied. When he left, he hugged me, brief, careful, real. I stood there after, watching the water move past as it always had, indifferent and steady. I didn't feel victorious. I felt intact. Which, after everything, felt like enough.